Okay, before Christ came, the people were under a veil. Okay, they're under the law of Moses. What does under a veil mean? Okay, and again, you can find another teacher that can probably explain this better than I can, but I'll put it to you simply. The veil was that Jesus came and removed the veil. Okay, there was more. There was deeper understanding. The Pharisees and the Sadducees and the people of that day they were only, it was a foreshadowing, it was a tutor, it wasn't fully revealed. And then Jesus comes, and what's he do? He removes the veil. And he says things like, you have read that it says, thou shalt not murder, but I tell you, if you have hatred in your heart for your brother, you have done so. Thou shalt not commit adultery, but if you've looked at a woman with lust, you've done it. So he's revealing, he's telling you how to receive salvation and what the law was. It was all pointing to Christ, and he summed it up in the scriptures by saying, love God and love your neighbor, and this fulfills the prophets and the law. Okay, do people understand what that means? It means we didn't have it, and they didn't have it, and then Jesus came and they rejected him because they thought the rules and the ordinances and the laws of their practice that had been going on from Moses the prophet, they were like, this guy's denying this, and he upset their world. And then Paul and the apostles, they all came along and they're preaching grace, and it's not being received because the revelation had been given to Paul. That's why he's trying to navigate a message and be both whoever I can be to draw someone to Christ. He was going to the synagogues, he was talking to the Gentiles, and was he ever making emphasis on the law of Moses? No. Okay, and people, they use that verse, well, we established the law. That's not what he's talking about. Okay, so Jesus removes the veil, and he gives Paul the revelation of the mystery of he's leading us through. And now we listen to Paul because Paul was directly spoken to on how to direct us. So we trust in Jesus, right? And if he sends a messenger, aka Paul, and he's not, you see that it seems to be contradictory, it's because we're not under that anymore. Okay, when he speaks about not judging about Sabbaths and days, and Peter is shown to go kill and eat, and he didn't want even Peter. Okay, Peter he was a great guy, but he a few times it showed his lack of faith. The boat, with the eating, sitting with the Gentiles, with denying Christ, So Paul's message was not the law of Moses. It simply wasn't. So when people live in the Old Testament and they're under the law, they're under the veil. They still today, 2,000 years later, the veil has not been lifted to see. And it's you can almost equate it. I listened to a video earlier today that said it's almost like a weak faith, that they think anything they do, they just don't trust in the freedom of Christ, and it's all hung on these old things that are not even in place anymore, and they can't understand it because they're still under the veil. I hope that made sense to people. Christ is King, and there is freedom in Christ.